Hello and welcome to the Believe Show. I am thrilled today that we have with us Lisa Sansom, and I'm going to tell you a few things about her. Hello, Lisa. So let me share a few things with you about Lisa, and then we will start on the Believe questions. So first about Lisa, this is Lisa's website, which is LBS Consulting. And you can see here that Lisa does a ton of things, speaking, training, coaching. But the thing that I want to tell you about Lisa, I'll tell you a few things about Lisa. But as you've seen, we have many coaches on this program, but we don't always have coaches who also do research and who also have worked in, and I'm going to point to fields including retail, education, government, finance, healthcare, and business. That's a little rare, and that's one of the things that's so cool about having Lisa here. I've known Lisa for a long time. She's an executive coach. She's a wealth of information. So if you are on her Facebook or on her website, you will get so much cool, detailed, useful information that you can use that you might want to sign up. So I'm thrilled she's here. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, I love the practical side of everything that I do. So I'm all about sharing the practical tools. I want to make people be able to try something new, like as soon as they've read it. Immediate implementation is so much fun.
That's exactly what I feel when I read your company Facebook or exactly like, oh, I can put this into action today.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to do a lightning round of 3 questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
First thing, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Oh, well, I think I probably wanted to be a ballerina when I was like 3 years old or whatever. It's kind of the standard little girl, wanted to be a ballerina thing.
No, but still, I've known you for years. I've never known that part. That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
I did ballet dancing for all of 2 years, and the point shoes hurt my feet, so I didn't keep going.
Wait, so you actually were not doing it when you were 3 years old, but you wanted to, and you only did it when you were around a teenager with the point shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, second question. What is one of your favorite foods?
One of my favorite foods. So over the holidays, because we just came out of our holiday season, my husband and my youngest son were making sourdough crust pizza, homemade sourdough crust, and it is just so good. And I sit down at those meals and I'm like, I'm only eating one piece, and then half a pizza later, it's deplorable, but it is so, so, so good.
That's awesome. And our third question, high school can be a challenging time. What is something good that came out of high school for you, or something that you discovered about yourself?
I loved high school. I'm really weird this way. I loved high school. I went to a country high school. My dad was a teacher there. My friend had a mother who was a custodian there. I had known a lot of the teachers since I was 3 years old. It was like being home. And it was really the first time that I had a solid group of friends. I did not have friends in elementary school. I was very much a loner, geeky kid. I didn't understand kids. I'd grown up around adults. High school made sense to me. And I had adults who looked out for me. I had friends. I got involved in yearbook and student council and drama club and all sorts of fun things. And high school was a very good time for me.
I have to tell you, we have never had that kind of answer on this program before. That's really, really cool. Also, it makes me feel like you almost went to school like a Laura Ingalls Wilder kind of school. It was everybody else in this cabin.
Yeah, it wasn't quite that wild. Like we actually did have central heating and not, coal burning fireplaces, but I enjoyed my high school years.
That's wonderful. Well, welcome to the Believe Show. And we'll start with a question of, what is something that you believe that others in your field would not agree with you about?
Yeah, so as I was thinking about this, and I was telling you just before we went live, this was a really hard one for me because I have a lot of beliefs. I'm very keen on getting on soapboxes, but I think most people in my field would agree with me on most things. So where I landed is I really believe that living in single family detached homes is vastly overrated.
So say more. What do you mean specifically by that?
Yeah, when I really think that we are meant to live in community. And I think about the idea of our ancestors living around a communal campfire where everybody is looking after the children, where you band together as a community to look after all the community needs, where if somebody is sick, other people will look after you. If somebody is struggling, other people know it because they know you. They see that you are struggling. You don't have to ask for help. Other people just pitch in and help. There is a community there. There is a communal feeling. And then over the years, over the generations, over the decades, we got this idea that we should live away from other people. We should live in not only like by ourselves, but by ourselves in buildings that isolate us physically from other people. And now we have houses where you can drive into the garage and you go from your indoor garage to your indoor house. The houses are all the way on the front of the property, and you have this big fenced in backyard
Mhm.
where that's your outdoors time. And you don't have to see anybody. You don't have to know your neighbors. You're expected to be self sufficient. You have your own stash of food. You have your own stash of first aid supplies. You have your own tools. Like, self sufficiency and living on your own in this kind of nuclear family model where you do not reach out for help and you do not talk to other people. I think it's convenient in some ways. And I'm very much an ambivert myself, like being at home during all this pandemic time. I'm fine with it. I don't need to be with a whole bunch of other people. But man, life sure is easier when you are around a whole bunch of other people, even though it's more convenient if you're on your own and you have everything you need right at your fingertips. So I think we've done this trade off of convenience for what is actually healthy and better for us individually and collectively. So I think single family dwelling homes are vastly overrated for a whole bunch of reasons.
So I love that you brought this up because I think you're right. A lot of people would disagree with you for the same reasons that you've just brought up as comforts, as self-sufficiency, as I can rely on myself. When have you had an experience of living in this communal nature that you liked so much?
Well, I don't think I have. Like, our society doesn't really lend itself to that. But I have had the experience of living far away from my community. So my in-laws live 2 hours away in one direction. My parents live 4 hours away in another direction. We moved to this town that we've been in now for 15, 16 years, and we have a good life here.
Mhm.
But we have had to pay for babysitters. We've had to pay for childcare in, preschools. We've had to rush around and really warp our lives when a kid gets sick, or when we get sick, or when the car breaks down, or when some large piece of equipment that we rely on, like a washing machine, breaks down. And just this notion of having to be self sufficient, it hurts. It really, really hurts sometimes. And I don't know if you know, my oldest son was born overseas. He was born in France. And we were living in Paris for a year. And everybody's like, ooh, Paris for a year. That must have been awesome. And it was. But it was also phenomenally difficult. And if you think about being a new mother and a new father, time zones away from your parents and your support group and all your friends. And this was in like not quite the pre internet days, but we didn't have the video conferencing and all that sort of stuff. There's email, but it's not the same. And when you're up at 4 in the morning with a crying baby and there's literally nobody around that you can talk to about this or get any help from, and people would come to visit us, but we're in Paris. They're not there to help us look after a baby,
Mhm.
right? They are there to walk the Champs Elysees and to see the Eiffel Tower. And they would babysit for us. That was sort of their way of saying thank you and so on. But then they would leave and we'd be on our own again. And I just think, not knowing, because we were brand new parents, not knowing what this experience was going to be like, we thought, oh, how hard can it be? We're going to have a baby 6 time zones away from our family. Sure, no problem. And then it was brutally difficult. And, I had some really weird pregnancy related diseases. I ended up getting appendicitis. There were some problems with the baby. Like, it was just all these things that now I look back and I say, wow, we were really dumb to move so far away from our community. And we got through it and everything's fine, of course. But just if we had stayed with our community during those really needy years, we would have been able to tap into the resources and the people that we needed. And in fact, I think probably built a better community around our kids. And they would have gotten to know their family better. Their family would have gotten to know them better. neighbors and so on. Like, I just think there is something about, I haven't had that close community piece, and maybe that's why I think that's so important, because I certainly have had the opposite.
And it sounds like a corollary to your thesis of, hey, we should be in more community settings. A corollary is especially when we anticipate or we expect that times are going to be hard for us.
Yeah, or when times are going to be good, then you can reach out to other people.
Yeah,
So I'm seeing a lot of things right now about the difficulty in asking for help.
right.
So if I think about Wayne Baker, for example, positive organizational scholarships, the importance of asking for help. Heidi Grant Havelson was writing about this, the importance of reaching out and asking for help. There is some video that I was watching recently with the Next Big Idea book club. It's just escaping me right now, the name of the woman who's written the book that they're focused on. But the video I just watched of hers this morning was about how important it is to reach out and ask for help, and that it's okay to delegate and so on. And so I've been thinking about this. It's been a theme in my life the past few months. Why is it so hard to ask for help when we have inbuilt compassion, which is when we notice suffering, we have an inbuilt action impulse to alleviate suffering. And we would all help somebody else, but we would never ask for help. And so I've just been wondering, like, why is there this imbalance between the asking and the receiving and the giving? And I think it's because we were never meant to ask for help. I
Wow,
think
that's
we were
really
meant, I don't know, it's just this thing that I've been thinking about. I've read nothing on this. This is totally my soapbox. I don't think we were ever meant to ask for help. I think we were meant to notice other people's suffering and to offer that assistance, to compassionately come to alleviate that suffering. But when you are in difficulty, it's really hard to get outside your head and to ask for help, but we notice it in other people. And we can only do that through communal living.
that's right. We don't really notice it in other people unless we see them all the time.
Yeah, because then you notice the difference in people.
Yeah.
Like, I notice my friend Senya, she's usually smiling and she's usually very energetic and she's usually very buoyant. And then today, your energy is a little bit lower. And that might look very normal for someone who didn't know you. But
Hmm.
for somebody who sees you day in and day out and sees how you interact and engage in the world, I would notice something's a little bit off. And I'd say, hey, Senya, are you okay today? You look a little bit off. But I can only go to you and notice that there might be some suffering there if I'm in communal living with you, if we have that close a friendship that I know you and see you on a regular basis.
Lisa, if your hypothesis is right and we should be in communal living, but we're not, we live in homes
Mm.
on our own with our nuclear families, what is like an intermediate antidote between how we live and the solution that you would most like to see?
Yeah, and I'm keenly aware there's a range of people, right? Like, you've got the whole introvert to extrovert range. I think the most important thing is we need social connections. And one of the things that's really bothered me during these pandemic times is the phrase social distancing. And I know that you and some other people have, piled on that as well. It is physical distancing. It is social connection. And we need to have those regular conversations with people, those trusted ways of getting out. Get out for walks with a close friend. Wear masks if you're outside, keep 6 feet apart, like whatever it is you need to do. But you need to have those deep relationships with at least a couple of people who are not inside your household, because they need to know what's going on with you. So, phone your family member every day or every couple of days, or make sure that you're staying even in text messaging with somebody on an consistent ongoing basis, so you have that depth of relationship and that regularity of contact. Because when you call your elderly parents only once a week, you can put on a brave face and so can they for half an hour once a week, right? But you can't maintain that through regular contact day in and day out. So I think you need at least somebody who's not in your house, right? Like, we all live with somebody, those of us who have that arrangement, we live with somebody who we see day in and day out. but they also may be suffering from the same things that we are. We can't necessarily rely on them in our times of need. And if we're also needy, it's really hard to give to them. So I think we probably need some really strong, deep social connections with people outside our household on a regular basis.
So it sounds like you're saying see and be seen, connect with someone, whether it's a distance walk. Would you also say that's something like a regular Zoom call with a friend, not a
Yeah.
business one? Okay, so it's not, you're not saying it just has to be in person, but so
No,
physically distant.
my very best friend in the whole world, we have known each other since grade 7. We have been in and out of like all sorts of stuff together, and we only went to school together for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like we only went to school together for grade 7 and 8, but we bonded pretty deep. We message each other pretty much every single day. We know what is going on in each other's lives, and we of course have a very solid history together. Um, we talk rarely. It's just not the sort of thing we do. We've tried a couple of video chats. It's been hard with the technology. It's just we've got very different technology. It doesn't always match up that well. But because we message each other every day and because we let each other know what's going on well and what's not going on well, I do feel like we have that depth of contact that if we don't hear from each other in a while, we'll reach out and say, hey, what's going on with you? Haven't heard from you in a while. Is everything okay?
I actually hear you now opening up a whole broad spectrum of how we can get to that intermediate. Let's say we can't get to the ideal of being in a community where everybody sees everybody, but now you're saying, look, you can walk physically distant with masks from people.
Yeah.
You might have a texting close relationship. You might have a phone close relationship. You might have a video at some cadence close relationship. It doesn't matter. And it might be different for different people in your life.
I think it would be. And I think for me, the key is, and I'm kind of, playing with this as we're talking about it. So thank you for the questions. I think it is about regular contact.
Mm.
It is about somebody that's outside your regular household. Because if something hits your household, it's going to hit everybody in your household. So you need somebody who's outside your household. And it needs to be something where you are prepared to let those defenses down. You're not putting on a brave face because you're trying to impress somebody. Like this is a friend. This is that virtuous Aristotelian friend kind of idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I have so much to think about with what you're saying. So yes, I see your ideal, but you're also very cognizant of the fact that we're not going to get to that ideal. So what are the other ways that we can not even care about how the other person is going to interpret our experiences? Like it might be if I'm sad and I'm talking to someone that I'm close to, they might get sad for me, but you're saying lay it on them.
I'm thinking that it's hard to reach out and ask.
Yeah.
And yet we need to these days because we're not in community closely with people. So that puts even more individual burden of responsibility on the shoulders of the sufferer. And that's hard. That's really, really hard. So creating this relationship to me would help do two things. So one is somebody else could notice that I'm off and they could ask me about it. So that takes some of the burden off of me. But also, if I need to reach out to somebody because nobody else in the world knows what's going on because they're not seeing me in that moment, I have somebody that I can reach out to, somebody that I've already ranted to, somebody that I've already shared life's joys with, somebody who already knows me. We have that relationship. I can reach out and ask them, hey, do you have a few minutes?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I got to lay something on you. Am I the idiot in this situation? Like, give me a real sanity check here, right? I feel so upset about this. Somebody just betrayed my trust. I just need to rant for a while. And I can ask them to do that because we have that relationship and they'll get it because they know me. And we'll still text or video or whatever the next day as though nothing happened. And it's going to be great.
I see your point. And a colleague of both yours and mine, David Paulet, makes a great distinction between to dump on someone or to vent. So venting is with permission. So if you call and you say, hey, Senya, I've got this client situation. Can we talk about it? I invite you. Yes, Lisa, please tell me about it. That's vent. So it's completely different from this, rah, everything is bad. But this, so in a sense, I see you setting up this supportive vent vent, welcome environment.
Yeah, I guess it could be. That could be a lot of fun. And sometimes that permission is presumed because of the
Exactly.
nature of the relationship.
Right.
And so it also needs to be okay to say, this is not a good time right now. Or like I hear my phone beep and I'm like, I just don't have time for that right now. So I'm just going to put that phone down for an hour and I will come back to my friend when I can, when I am feeling okay with that. And then my friend on the other end is okay with that too, because that's the sort of relationship that we have. If
Both
we
ways.
really need each other, it's got to be synchronous. It's got to be voice to voice. Like that's desperate measures these days. That's just how it works. But if I'm relying only on the people in my household for that,
Mhm.
and just for anybody who's watching this and doesn't know me, like I have an adult and I have two teenage kids. Like I have a lot of people that I can rely on for this. I can go to my husband and ask him for stuff, but he's dealing with his own stuff too. And if anything happens to any of our extended family, it's going to hit all four of us.
Mhm.
I need somebody else outside that. And since we're not in that community living where there are lots of people who would see me and recognize that I might need some assistance at this time, I have to kind of create that in advance.
Yeah, Lisa, just even as my own example, I've lived in a place where we were in a home and there were no sidewalks. And so people didn't really walk
Mm.
outside that much. And now I live in a place where there are sidewalks and people talk. So everybody's wearing masks, but people talk. They say hi to each other. They generally know what's going on in people's lives. So even just that small distinction towards your ideal, I can tell the difference.
I live in a 1960s neighborhood, and there are sidewalks all over the place. Houses are situated in the middle of their lot, so there's a big front yard and a big backyard. Not huge. I mean, these are not gigantic lots, but like there's room in the front of your house. And so you are encouraged to go outside. You should see people. And there are walking paths through the houses to get to the school. Like it was set up as a very walkable 1960s kind of neighborhood. And I remember, like, when I finished university, I lived in university residence. University is a very communal environment. Like, you do live in close proximity with other people. You see people in your class day in and day out. That's just how it is. And I remember a friend of mine got married to his girlfriend pretty quickly after university. And we went to the wedding, and he and his new wife pretty quickly bought a house in a brand new subdivision, like a brand new area that was just being built. And so we went to their housewarming, and the place was so new that like the next block was still dirt where there should have been sidewalks and the wooden framing of houses and stuff like that. Like it was brand new. And I remember driving down the street to this friend's new house with his new wife, and he's starting in this new life and everything. And the whole environment just felt so demoralizing and detached because, like I said, all the houses were at the front of the lots. They all had these big, ugly garages that protruded right in the front of the houses. And there was no way set up to create community
Mhm.
in this row of identical, physically detached homes that you knew people were just going to drive into their garage and walk into their house and go sit in their fenced in backyard with their 10-foot fences where you can't see over to what the neighbors are doing.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure people do make friends with their neighbors and they do overcome the physical barriers, but man, it is a lot harder. And
It's-
it's just such a stark contrast from communal university living.
mhm. Exactly. From when you're all on top of each other in dorm rooms. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And we're taught that's what you're supposed to go for,
Yeah.
right? You're supposed to want the home ownership and to be independent and self-sufficient and live on your own and all that. And I'm like,
But where are the
wow,
people?
where are the people? And after raising a couple of kids, I'm like, wow, I think this is really hard, especially on families who are supposed to do it all on their own. And I don't think we're meant to do that.
So cool. I am so glad we're talking about this. We always end with two specific questions. For the people who are with us today, what is a thought that you would like to leave our viewers with?
Oh boy, a thought I would like to leave everybody with. Yeah, I guess based on this conversation, it really is about that compassion. Like notice and alleviate suffering wherever you can. And especially with recent events, especially with extreme political divides, like there are people suffering all over the place. And, when I see somebody in the grocery store who is struggling with moving a big heavy item or something like that, I don't stop and ask them what their political beliefs are or how many kids they have or how much money they make. Like, you just see a person and you just help a person.
That's a really cool example. Excuse me, I'd like to help you, but hold on.
You fill out this demographic survey first, please.
This is how I help people. Yeah, please fill out. And then our concluding question. If you could snap your fingers and almost everybody in the world were to take some action, what would you want that action to be?
I would love for everybody to just take a deep breath, put their hand on their heart, and recall something that is really important and meaningful to them.
That's a really beautiful and simple one.
Thank you. Everybody can do it right now.
Literally, yeah, just as they're with us now. Yeah. Thank you. What a super cool place to end. Thank you so much for being with us today, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Senya. This was great. I really appreciate it.
This was really fun. Thank you. Bye, everyone. See you soon.